Well, it's that time again, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk to our Brew Buddy of the Month. This time it's the great Matt Warner from Parrotdog out of Lyle Bay in Wellington there. They're our Brew Buddy of the Month here at Huapai. So 6 of their excellent beers are on at the moment. And so it's great to see you, Matt. I don't think I've seen you probably since Beervana, and even that's hard to remember because you know what that's like.
Yeah, g'day, Jason. Yeah, no, it has been a while. I was just trying to think, we might have been up at Morningside maybe the end of last year briefly. But yeah, no, it's been a while. Looking forward to getting back up to Auckland in a couple of weeks.
Excellent, man. So you're going to be here, I think it's on, is it the 27th for Meet the Brewer thing?
Yeah, 27th at Huapai. Looking forward to a bit of a takeover there and a bit of a session. Should be good.
Awesome, mate. Have you been traveling much, Matt, around the country, getting to places?
No, not so much. I guess, yeah, obviously quieting down a bit with COVID, but I've done the odd couple of little trips, but certainly nothing like pre-COVID. But yeah, a few things up on the cards and such as that trip, and can't wait to get up and see how the mighty AK is going.
Nice, mate. Nice. You know, it's not too bad from a beer spot perspective, Matt. We've been so blessed by our great customers, mate, who just came back in numbers once level 1 came along, and I'm sure it's no different for you guys in your tap room there, the nice bar. I'm sure you know, you've done enough work in the past, mate, to sort of earn that loyalty, and isn't it great to see folks flooding back?
Yeah, no, it's been the same for us. It's been incredible, really. 2 of our biggest trading months, both from the bar and wholesale, off the back of lockdown. And yeah, no, it's just incredible to see the locals coming back to the pub. Everyone, you know, cheerful, catching up, enjoying a brew and a bit of food. It's a really warming, humbling experience.
It is, mate. I feel the same way. And there was a study from Oxford University I read. It came out in 2016, I think it was. So it was shortly after we'd opened our first branch in Northcote. And the study suggested that for men's mental health in particular, it's important for the mates to get together at least twice a week and have at least 2 pints each at that session. Wow. And I just wholeheartedly endorse that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds about right, I think. A little bit of a midweek pint with your mates, and then another catch up in the weekend sounds perfect.
So Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Parrotdog started 2011, I think it was.
Yeah, 2011. Yeah.
And am I right in thinking you guys were in an old automotive workshop or something on Vivian Street in the city there at the beginning?
Yeah, so that was the first brewery built, which was actually 2012. And the year before that, we started brewing at the famous Mike's Brewery in Taranaki, and got a few brews under our belt there, and then went about building the first site on Vivian Street. And yeah, you're right, an old automotive, bit of a garage workshop there.
Nice. And what was your capacity in those early days, the first iteration, Matt?
We had a 25 hec or 2,500 litre brew house there, and just started off with a modest 4 2,500 litre fermenters. And then, yeah, I mean, at that time, it was pretty hard to imagine filling out that space. But that happened in the space of a couple of years pretty quickly. We got a bottling line in there the next year, and then just started cramming it with tanks, and looked like any sort of small to medium New Zealand brewery that had all the right plans to begin with, but then run out of space and you just chuck everything in.
Classic. It's yeah, it is the same old story, and you guys have gone through that that growth phase where, you know, you build a place, you pretty quickly reach capacity, and then what are we going to do? We can't produce enough. It's, you know, we need to serve the market. It's going great. And so you guys were sort of one of the first in New Zealand to do this. You went crowdfunding. and that was a huge success. I think you did that first round in, I think it was 2016. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 2016. Yes, so that was sort of coming to the boiling point of the old premises and just having no more capacity and literally no space to put any more tanks in there. We had fully outsourced all our logistics to a third-party provider, so you know, all our beer made in one day would just go straight out the door because we had nowhere to store it. And it just got to the point where it was like, okay, if we're going to keep growing and take it to the next level, we've got to go somewhere else. And yeah, we were pretty fortunate. We weren't actually on the hunt for too long, and through the current landlord, he was on our side and trying to help us find somewhere else, even though he was going to lose us as a tenant. And he had heard of this premises out Lowell Bay, and we came and had a look, and straight away just saw massive potential. It was chopped up into a lot of little tenancies at the time, but we could see with those tenancies coming to an end, we could get rid of all these partition walls and whatnot, and create one big space. And the goal from the beginning was always to do everything on the one site. And from having those sort of services split up at the previous brewery, we just really wanted that cohesion. And we knew a lot of people were moving to the contract brewing model. We didn't necessarily believe in that ourselves, and we just wanted to do everything ourselves on the one site. And also open a bar and kitchen, which is something we'd always wanted to do, but didn't have the space at the old site. We just had a little off-license flag and filler there. So yeah, it all came together really, and found a great spot. And of course, then we had to work out how we were going to fund it.
The old money issue.
Yeah, that's the one that comes along after you've got the great ideas and you get excited. And so it was, yeah, we went through a lot of thoughts there, whether we try and find some sort of single or, you know, a couple of little big time investors. Or yeah, go to this crowdfunding model was another high option at the time, and we'd seen, you know, Yesterday Boys do it to good effect, and also Renaissance at the time. I think we might have been the third New Zealand brewery to go for it. And so we did a lot of research and determined that would be great. You know, let's bring on board a whole heap of brand ambassadors and people that are passionate about the company and the beers that we can provide. And so we went about signing up with Pledge Me, and yeah, we had a campaign sort of, it was around, yeah, it was on Beervana weekend 2016. And we thought, well, let's launch that campaign on the Wednesday going into Beervana, because that week's got a lot of hype and excitement around the industry. And that seemed to work well. So that, I think that, yeah, it took off on Wednesday afternoon, and then within 48 hours and sort of, I think it was the second session of the Friday at Beervana, we had reached the $2 million maximum limit that you could raise in one go in 48 hours. So that was, yeah, incredible.
Mate, I'm so happy to hear that, and it's a great testament to the three Macs and Parrotdog, and you know what you've achieved from super humble beginnings when you did that first brew for Beervana, I think it was, and you trundled all the way out to Uranui there to Mike's where he used to be, and you popped down this beer and you fucked it up, Matt.
Yeah, to put it simply, that's pretty much what happened. But turned out to be a bit of a blessing in disguise. But yeah, who are we to know as, you know, very naive, amateur, novice homebrewers that had only done about 5 batches of homebrew. Who are we to think about things like scaling up to 1,000 litres and that's not a linear process. So we learned that lesson pretty quickly. But turned out, as I said, a blessing, and we were able to salvage that first batch somehow from being an absolute bitterness bomb, which at the time wasn't such a bad thing if you think back to that time in the industry. And I remember going down to Shigezaki and Malt House and whatnot at the time, and you know, people wanted big bitter beers, but this was something else. This was next level. Before the dry hops had been added in, and Oh, Joseph Wood. He's always been a good good one to wind me up, rack me up, and he was doing a bit of work with Ron at Mike's at that time, as he was still living in New Plymouth, and he had popped in because we were still living down in Wellington. We'd just cruise up there every month for the brew, but he popped in and tasted it out of the fermenter at the end of the ferment, and he gave me a call, I think, straight away, and was like, "Mate, this beer's fucked. You gotta dump it." And I rang Matt Krastowski, business partner, and I was just distraught. And we were just trying to work out what we could do. But, we just chucked our whole, life savings into this beast. And this 1,000 litres, which seems such a small amount now, but at the time it was everything. And we just said, all right, we're just going to have to roll with it. How can we somehow market this beast that's going to be quite bitter? But the dry hop still hadn't been added in. And so after they were added in, we did persevere with the brew. We didn't tell Ron to dump it. Turned out that those big New Zealand hops, and a lot of them, like a huge amount per litre, a lot more than we probably use now, being naive again at the time. But they added a lot of fruity sweetness, and it actually ended up balancing a lot of that bitterness. But Biavana needed the name for the booklet, because back then you had to get all your beer names in for the booklet. And so we thought, yeah, how are we going to sell this thing? The only way through is just to embrace it. And from out of somewhere, we pulled the name Bitovich and thought, let's roll with this, and at least people will, go in with the understanding that it's going to be bitter. And it turned out to be the launching platform of this whole company and brand.
The foundation stone of the Parrotdog story, Matt. It's just fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. So we would have that. Wouldn't have it any other way. But at the time, it was a pretty nerve-wracking situation.
Buddy, when you go balls deep like that, when you put everything you've got into it, and you come up with a result that, and everyone respects Joseph, right? He's not a man to mince words. So when you get a call from Joseph Wood saying, "Dude, it's fucked, you've got to dump it," that's just like somebody reaching up in there and just dragging everything out, right?
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. He's pretty straight shooter, but he does like to wind you up every now and then. That kind of guy, I reckon. But nah, yeah, it was pretty concerning, but nice to come out the other side of that and have that very batch, get the People's Choice at Biavana that year. And yeah, as you said, that was the platform, the foundation.
Buddy, you can't make that up, Matt. You should be so proud of that, buddy. And what a comeback. Just awesome.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. You kind of do forget about it, and every now and then things like this, you revisit it, and it is a nice sort of warming feeling.
That's awesome, mate. Look, you guys have regular appearances in the New World Beer Insider Awards, and you got a highly recommended this year with Falcon, which is just an outstanding APA, mate. Tell us a bit about that beer. Obviously, as an APA, you're chucking some American hops in there. What's sort of the differentiator for Falcon?
That beer was so on topic of building this new brewery in Lyle Bay. Up until that point, we hadn't done an APA, an American Pale Ale. We had Bitovich there, New Zealand Hop IPA. We had Dead Canary, New Zealand Hop Pale Ale, and we brought all this new kit into Lyle Bay, and we thought, let's release a new beer in our core range and just really see what this new brewery can do. See what kind of hop character we can get with our new equipment like the centrifuge. It was just really, let's start with a blank canvas. And so we went about quite a in-depth R&D situation of testing a lot of the APAs around New Zealand at the time, and what was good, what was bad, what was, which direction did we want to head in, and went about developing a recipe, which, on the face of it is pretty basic, to be honest. And we went for, quite a dry, pale sort of base with a little bit of sort of light crystal malt in there, just to add a touch of body and sweetness, but not too heavy. And then really basic Citra and Mosaic, just the ultimate American hop duo. So yeah, when you actually look at it on paper, it's a really simple recipe, but yeah, has done a lot for us and was great in sort of launching this new brewery and having that new product out there, and continues to do well. Done well a couple of years in the New World Top 30 and the gold medals as they used to be. So yeah.
And so also this year, and the highly commended Colin got through as well.
Colin, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Colin snuck through into that highly commended top 100. So yeah, we're happy with that.
Now this series of beers with names, what's that all about? Where did that come from, Matt?
We got to a point we'd always sort of struggled with MPZ, and the part that really slowed us down was coming up with names and sort of, we like to have things fit into categories and series and try not to just release stuff randomly with no sort of context to it, random new release beers. So that one took us a while. We just thought of, we had to really think of how we could do, because these sort of monthly new releases were becoming popular and we knew we had to sort of keep up there. But we needed a framework for that to happen. And yeah, one day I just had the simple idea of why don't we just go with human names. I mean, they're endless. There are plenty around. People have such attachments to them. And it's just an easy way. All we've got to do is think of a name each time with the beer that we want to brew, and then get a design done. And it just suits that 440ml single release range so well. So yeah, we're glad that we came up with it.
And do the names have any importance at all? Are they people you know, Matt, or could the punters submit a name, you know, like Ferrity or something like that?
Yeah, we might look at doing something like that, getting a bit of collaboration there with the punters. I guess maybe half of them have got a connection to someone existing, and the other half so far have just been names that we really liked and thought suited that beer well. But in terms of Colin, that was named after Colin Mellon, the famed ex-proprietor of Malthouse, and was our entry into that Malthouse West Coast IPA Challenge that year. Keith, the first one that we launched, Keith and Susan, the first two hazies. Keith is actually our famed brewery ghost, and he's been around since the Vivian Street brewery, the old days. Basically anything that went wrong, anything strange that happened overnight, failed glycol solenoids or tanks bursting open, we're just blaming it on Keith. So it was nice to finally reincarnate Keith and bring him into a beer form. Nice. Keith's pretty tasty, mate. He's a good dude, yeah. We love Keith, and yeah, we've been playing around with a lot of different sort of styles of the hazy in the last sort of couple of years, but we do still keep going back, and we love a fresh batch of Keith coming through. We're actually, funnily enough, brewing on right now in the brew house, a big double batch of that, and yeah, every time it comes out, it's a beer we still love and cherish a lot. So take us back to those home brewing days, mate, when the three Mats were together. I think were you guys studying together? Yeah, so we were all at university around the same time, not actually studying together in the same fields, but Matt Kostowski and I were living together. Well, the three of us, Matts, are weirdly connected via ex-girlfriends and ex-partners at that time, who were all friends from, a lot of these people were from the Nelson region, all the other Matts and Wadia. I'm the only sort of rogue from Taranaki. But yeah, we're all flatting together and at uni, and that's when the home brewing bug sort of caught on, and we've got a good taste for these craft beers coming out of those famed Wellington institutions, but didn't have a lot of coin ourselves as students, and wanted to sort of replicate those flavors, and so that we could probably, you know, have a few more than just one or two that we could afford a week. Try and brew, you know, 20 or 40 litres and spread that around the friends. So that's really where it all kicked off.
Nice. And of course, the name Parrotdog has a you know, good meaning between the three of you as well. Tell the folks about how Parrotdog came to be.
Yeah, so that's that really went back to those home brewing days, and the home brewing duo, and you know, we started to get a few people come sniffing around and wanting some beers at the flat, knowing that we've been making some, and
Funny
so Matt Kay and I wanted to sort of give that a little bit of an identity, and sort of forge something out of it. I guess at the time it was a dream to own a brewing company, let alone a brewery itself. And so we just sort of almost jokingly sort of forged this identity and created a Facebook page and maybe a Twitter page. Twitter was big for the brewing industry back then, I remember. And sort of just started to create something. And yeah, in the background, it just sort of started to get a little bit of momentum and sort of played out with that time when we did commit to doing our first contract brew in that batch of Bitovich. And we thought maybe we would change the name at that time when we went commercial, but nothing else. We couldn't think of anything better, and there'd already been a little bit of traction, as I said, with that Parrotdog name, so it just stuck. But it actually, the name itself goes back to Matt Krasowski had a pet parrot while we were living together in homebrewing called Shmee, who was a little bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest, but quite a funny little bird. And him and I called each other dog, and actually still do to this day around the office. And we just put two words together stupidly for that homebrewing identity, and here we are. It's still here in 2020.
And I'm so happy it is, mate. And you know, it's getting into this commercial brewing whimsy isn't that easy, mate. And you know, for you guys to have done so well and the time you've had, it's just, you know, I'm so proud of you guys. It's just such a great story. To the point where you know, and this is what I admire about you guys as well, as a business unit, I suppose it's the best way to sort of cobble it together. You're very nimble, you know, you're not afraid to make the calls that you need to make for the improvement of your business. And that can be a really tough and challenging thing when you're doing what you're doing, you know, and driving it yourself. And one of the things you guys dabbled with was distributor networks. And tell us about that experience, because there might be folks listening who are perhaps considering doing something with distributors, or perhaps considering going commercial. How do we get our beer out there? So it can be a good or a bad experience, and sometimes in between with distributors. Describe your experience, because ultimately you ended up taking that sort of sales and marketing and distribution back onto yourselves. So maybe explain the experience and how you came up with that decision.
Yeah, sure. I'll give it my best shot. Not being my sort of focus area of the business, but certainly, yeah, you're right. It's been huge learning curves all along the way with distribution, getting our beer into people's hands. And yeah, we tested the small distributor model in the beginning. We tested, which sort of suited us, you know, sort of a half direct, half small distributor model in the very beginning with a small brewery. You're just trying to get your beer out there, and it's nice to have people who are actually able to focus on that while you're in the shed brewing, you know, and you've only got 3 people or whatever. But then as we sort of went through that at the old brewery, and then as we came out to the big one, we knew we've got all of a sudden got all this extra capacity, which we needed some of to grow naturally from the old brewery, but there was a lot of headroom as well, and we sort of felt like we needed to justify this big space and all that capacity. And so we went for more of a larger distributor relationship at that time, which was Moa. And yeah, that started off pretty well, as most of those sort of relationships do. And then I guess something that we've just sort of always ended up in the position of feeling, no matter who the partner in the relationship is, but you sort of get to a point where you feel like you need a little bit more control yourself, and feel like you could perhaps put more energy and passion into it. I mean, it's just a natural thing. You always think you could be more passionate about your own products and push them a bit harder. But also just that feeling of being in control of your own destiny. And when you're in that distributor model, it's very hard. You always think you can do that little bit better. And so there's always that sort of tug and pull in both directions. And so I think they definitely have their place, those relationships and models. But you know, we might not be here without them. Each of those little stepping stones along the way. But in terms of looking back now and being sort of 9 years down the track, one of the best things we ever did was pull it in-house. But we couldn't have done that much earlier. We needed resources. We needed the right people to be able to execute that. And we needed this big home base here where we could actually house, you know, X amount of people in an office, and have a sales team. It was a scary moment when we did pull away from that Moa relationship, sort of not having done that ourselves. But our fourth business partner, who a lot of people might know now, Waddy, he who joined us very early on at Vivian Street, he stepped up and took that head of sales role with no sort of experience in that field at all, but just with an insane passion and a really good people person. We knew that he could do the job. And like the first year was a lot of grinding away and setting up systems and processes and building those relationships, and meeting the head suppliers of big supermarket groups and what have you. All these new bars opening up as well. So there was a lot to learn, and it had to be learned very quickly. And Waddy's done a great job with that. And now we've in the last year really like doubled our sales team. And we've got, yeah, a really tight-knit, awesome group of people who are out there pushing our product, and helping people get the best out of our products as well.
That's awesome, mate. You know, and to bring that sales and distribution back in-house, you did a second round of crowdfunding, which was just as successful. So that's just amazing.
Yeah, it was. We got to a point there where we identified a massive opportunity of canning, obviously, which was becoming big here in New Zealand. But actually, at the time, the focus for us was to get cans over to Aussie, which we've been doing a good amount of exporting over to the Coles group over there for a while, and they had wanted to move to cans from bottles, and I think cans were. You know, had taken off even earlier in Australia, or were always big in Australia. And so we wanted to get a canning line. We hadn't quite finished the bar here. And as most projects do, you run out of budget. And so we needed a little bit more to finish the bar properly and to do it justice and to really do it how we wanted to. And then also to bring that sales team function back in-house, we needed a bit of capital to get that sales team off the ground. As you know, with vehicles and phones, and you know, each salesperson has their own sort of budget they need, and so we needed that little bit of a boost. And so those three things were the major parts of that second raise. And yeah, we were lucky to hit to go over the $1 million mark again. And that really gave us that sort of second injection that we needed to really capitalise on what we'd already built this place, but we just needed to go to that next step. And yeah, that was great. It was nice to have a lot of returning shareholders from the original round as well come in and buy more shares. And yeah, there was just a really good feeling of confidence after that second raise. And yeah, we haven't looked back since, really.
That's excellent, mate. And so for folks who might be planning a trip down Wellington Way, tell us exactly where Lyell Bay is and where we can find the nice bar and the Parrotdog Brewery.
So yeah, very, very close to the airport, which is handy. Always make sure you pop in here after you get off your plane and just before you get back on it. But yeah, Lyell Bay, beautiful bay right by the airport runway. It's a suburb that's really starting to take off. Some good weekend cafes, the Maranui Surf Life Club, which is, you know, a branch institution. There's a good shopping precinct out here. And yeah, it's a community that's really come along in leaps and bounds since we've been here, I think. And I think, yeah, it just takes a few businesses and a bit of a vibe to bring in more and more people. And yeah, it's such a buzzing little community, but we're only, not hardly 10 minutes drive out of the CBD. That's the, you know, the great thing about Wellington, everything is so central. Catch a cab or a ride share or whatever. Super easy to get to, and yeah, as I said, if you're flying in and out, we're right there by the runway.
So Matt, I want to thank you so much for talking to us today, buddy. You're our Brew Buddy of the Month at Huapai this month, which we're really grateful for. Thanks so much for your support. And we'll see you on the 27th, Matt. You're coming up to say g'day. You're going to be at Huapai. So I'd recommend everybody coming down to say g'day to Matt because, you know, he did that classic thing, started with a group of mates as a home brewer. It's gone commercial, doing incredibly well. And, you know, so proud of you guys. The beers are outstanding. The quality is great. The packaging is just absolutely mint. It really pops on the shelves in the supermarkets when you see it, Matt. So great job on that. And geez, man, just thanks so much for your time, buddy.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. Great to talk, and yeah, really looking forward to coming up to Huapai in a couple of weeks' time. We'll have Rich there, our relatively new guy up on the sales, up on the tools up there, who's a great dude. Can't wait to hang out with him and Waddy for the night. We'll have a few special new releases there as well, and yeah, it should be a cracker.
Excellent, Matt. Hey, thanks a lot, buddy. Please say hello to the rest of the team for me, mate, and we'll see you another time.
Sounds good. Thanks, mate.